Children are not quiet by nature. They are noise. They are movement. They are questions that don't ask for permission. A child doesn't enter a room gently. They burst into it, laughing too loudly, running without direction, speaking without editing themselves. They don't calculate how much space they're allowed to take. They take it. A child laughs like nothing bad has ever happened, cries like nothing bad has ever been survived. They don't perform emotion. They are emotion. And for a while, the world lets them be this way. But then, something shifts. Not suddenly, not violently, quietly. The laughter doesn't stop in one day. It softens first. The questions don't disappear. They hesitate. The running slows into careful walking. The child begins to notice something strange. People react. A look that lingers a second too long. A sigh that lands heavier than words. A tone that says, "You're doing too much." No one sits the child down and explains shame. No one announces the rules. But the child learns them anyway. They learn that joy has a volume limit. That curiosity can be inconvenient. That emotions need to be managed, not felt. And the most dangerous lesson of all, that being yourself can make other people uncomfortable. So the child starts adjusting. They laugh, but not as freely. They speak, but after checking the room first. They feel, but quietly. This isn't obedience. This is calibration. The nervous system begins taking notes. When I'm loud, something bad happens. When I cry, I'm told to stop. When I ask too much, I'm dismissed. The brain doesn't call this trauma. It calls it instruction. And instruction, repeated enough times, becomes identity. Soon the child learns the safest version of themselves is the smallest one. They don't stop expressing because they want to. They stop because silence works. Silence doesn't get laughed at. Silence doesn't get corrected. Silence doesn't get rejected. Silence gets rewarded. Such a mature child. So well-behaved. So calm. What adults call maturity is often a child learning how to disappear. And the tragedy is, the world applauds this transformation. No one asks what it cost. The child who once filled rooms with energy becomes the one who sits quietly in corners, observing, listening, learning people. Because when you stop expressing, you start watching. You learn how moods shift, how tone changes, how to predict reactions before they happen. You become skilled at reading the room because survival demands it. And slowly, without realizing it, the child trades expression for safety. This is the moment silence stops being a behavior and becomes armor. An armor that feels heavy, but necessary. Because what happens when you speak? Someone interrupts. Someone minimizes. Someone laughs at the wrong moment. What happens when you cry? You're told you're sensitive, dramatic, too much. So the child adapts. They speak less. They feel inward. They retreat, not out of preference, but out of protection. And years later, people look at this child, now older, and say, "Oh, they're just introverted." But introversion for many wasn't chosen. It was trained. It was shaped in classrooms where questions were inconvenient, in homes where emotions were unpredictable, in environments where silence felt safer than honesty. This isn't personality. This is memory living in the body. Because when a child learns early that visibility comes with pain, they stop wanting to be seen. And something important happens here. The loud child doesn't die. They go underground. They fold themselves into the quiet parts of the mind. They live in imagination, in thoughts that never get spoken, in feelings that never get named. The world sees a calm exterior, but inside, there is motion, there is tension, there is a child still pressing against the walls of silence, wondering when it's safe to come out again. But safety hasn't arrived yet, because growing up doesn't automatically bring freedom. Sometimes it just brings better control. And so the armor stays on. The silence deepens. And by the time the world meets you as an adult, it never knew who you were before the quiet. You didn't become quiet because you lacked something. You became quiet because you learned something. Silence doesn't end when childhood ends. It follows you. It grows with you, learns your routines, adapts to your adult life. At first, it looks like control. You're calm, you're composed, you don't overreact. People admire that. They say you're independent, self-sufficient, strong. But strength, when learned too early, often hides exhaustion. Because silence is not empty. It is full. Full of thoughts you never finished, conversations you rehearsed but never had, emotions you postponed because there was no safe place for them. So you carry them. Quietly, you learn to live inside your head. It becomes your safest room. Inside, you explain things better. You express yourself clearly. You are understood, at least by yourself. Outside, you keep it simple. Short answers, polite smiles. I'm fine. Not because you're dishonest, but because honesty once hurt too much. This is the part people don't see. They think introversion means you don't need connection. But that's not true. You crave it deeply. You just don't trust it easily. Because trust, for you, was broken before it was built. So now before you speak, you scan. You read faces, tone, body language, energy. You ask silently, is this safe? Will I be heard? Will I regret this? And if the answer isn't clear, you stay quiet. Not out of fear, but out of wisdom learned too young. This is why crowds drain you. Not because you dislike people, but because you're always alert, always reading, always measuring. Your nervous system never learned that connection could be soft. It learned that connection required caution. So solitude becomes your medicine, in books, in music, in films that feel like mirrors, in late-night thoughts no one interrupts. You build rich inner worlds, worlds where you're allowed to feel fully, where your emotions aren't too much, where silence is chosen, not forced. But even there, something aches, because holding everything inside has a cost. There are moments, quiet moments, when you feel the weight of all the things you never shared, the laughter you swallowed, the anger you muted, the sadness you carried alone. And in those moments, you feel it. There is a child inside you, still waiting to be seen without being judged, waiting to speak without being corrected, waiting to exist without shrinking. They didn't disappear. They adapted. And adaptation saved you. It kept you safe when safety wasn't guaranteed. It taught you how to survive emotionally unpredictable worlds. So no, you were never broken. You were intelligent. Your sensitivity wasn't a flaw. It was a warning system. Your silence wasn't weakness. It was protection. But here's what no one told you. Protection is not meant to last forever. Armor is heavy, and carrying it into adulthood can slowly suffocate the parts of you that want to breathe. Healing doesn't mean becoming loud. It doesn't mean turning into someone you're not. It means learning choice. Learning that silence can be rested and expression can be safe. Healing begins in small moments, in the friend who listens without fixing, in the room where no one rushes you, in the song that unlocks something you didn't know was still alive. Maybe you felt it, a moment where you laughed freely, just for a second. A moment where you spoke honestly and weren't punished. A moment where you felt warmth instead of judgment. That's not coincidence. That's memory resurfacing. That's the loud child reminding you they still exist. And maybe remembering hurts, because it shows you the gap between who you were and who you had to become. But pain doesn't mean you're going backward. It means you're touching truth. You don't have to tear down all your walls. They protected you. But you can build windows. Let some light in. Let some of you out. One sentence, one emotion, one honest moment at a time. You don't owe the world your voice, but you owe yourself the chance to use it when you're ready. Because the world doesn't need you to perform. It doesn't need more noise. It needs meaning. And meaning often comes from those who have felt deeply and learned to speak carefully. Your quiet holds wisdom. Your depth holds medicine. Your presence holds calm. Not every fire roars. Some flames glow silently, steady, warm, unshakable. Maybe that's you. And if you're listening to this somewhere safe, somewhere private, somewhere quiet, maybe now is the time. Not to become someone new, but to remember the child who once took up space without fear, and to let them breathe again. Slowly, you survived. You adapted. And now, maybe you're ready to live. Not hidden, not armored, but present.